G2 beat Dom1 from red side. You now get side selection for losing team after this game. So Dom1 will have side selection. They could run it back onto blue side, the side that has been so dominant for them individually and so dominant throughout this tournament, but that's massive for G2 to prove that they could beat them from red side.
It's huge. And also now we've proven from G2, one of the immortal questions in a best of 5 is how does this team adapt? Can this team adapt? Are they, a one-trick pony? Do they only have one thing up their sleeve? We obviously know that G2 isn't that team, so pretty easy to answer that question, but Game 2 proves it. Now we get to see how much more Dom1 Gaming can bring to the table. How diverse is their playstyle? How diverse are their champion pools and their skill sets? And while we wait for Game 2, listen to Bring Home the Glory on Spotify League of Legends official playlist during the Spotify song break.
Welcome back, everyone, to the State Farm Analyst Zone, where G2 managed to bounce back, and we're now 1-1 in today's semifinal. It looks like we got 2 convincing games from either side so far, so let's take stock of what we have seen. The first thing my analysts wanted to highlight as the music keeps going, because it's like a epic setup for this replay. You were impressed by Mickey X's moves here.
Yeah, I think that what we wanted to see was a shift in the support priority, and particularly we wanted to see Mickey playing better than he did in Game 1. Getting his hands on the Leona, I think that he showcased what he was capable of. Roaming around the map a lot more, saving this 2 versus 2 play that almost ended in disaster, and ultimately having a much better performance relative to Game 1.
I like the steal away of Leona. I like that adaptation. It's Beryl's favorite champion. Mickey's good at it, and in the current meta, it's a very strong blind pick. There's no trash gameplay coming out of both supports, and even that matchup is something that is playable for the Leona. Look at that cancellation. That sucks for the top lane.
I think that what we saw a lot of tied in with this was a lot of skirmishing and roaming, just like we saw from Game 1. G2 wanted to try and force a lot of fights around the map, and it's a very common tactic when you're running Twisted Fate and Camille, right? This isn't anything new. We've even seen Down1 run a very similar comp themselves. But this time it was G2 consistently coming out ahead in the skirmishes. There was a point in time where they were even up 9 kills to 3 because of the number of picks and punishes they were finding all across the board.
And I don't want to take anything away from Beryl, respectively, in Game 1 and Mickey, respectively, in Game 2, but we do see that aside from who is playing it, the Leona just looks very, very oppressive because of the way these games are playing out.
I wouldn't be surprised if we get to see it being picked earlier and earlier. Leona also is pretty decent into Pantheon, something both of these supports like to play. I wouldn't even be surprised if it gets banned even. I think Mickey is doing well, Beryl's doing well too, and this is the type of game we all wanted to see.
I mean, at the beginning we talked about what the supports could be doing in this Best of 5.
Yeah, they certainly did. And I think that what is interesting, and we're singing the praises of G2 right now, right? And I think that when we look at how things have played out in Game 1, it was just G2 made early mistakes, Down1 got a lead, immediately they punished off the back of it. And something Yamada said at the beginning of the day, Down1, when they have a lead, they're kind of chilling, like they have such great understanding of the game that they just know how to move around the map and they are able to accelerate the game. However, in this situation, they're actually put on the back foot and they have to then be proactive. And this is where we actually saw some more great stuff from Down1 when they get a turnaround playing the bot side of the map.
Yeah, you remove the nameplates and you would think this is Caps doing these action moves. This is what I really, really wanted to hammer home, because in most cases what people associate with LCK teams is just patient waiting to die kind of play against the G2 that is ahead. But this is proactivity, as Verius said, and this is something that gave them a lot of breathing room in this game where they're facing a third dragon coming in, and in general we're in a very, very tough spot.
And also it kind of it also conveys effectively kind of the weight of when you're up versus a Dom1. I think even as a G2, you've not run into a situation yet at the World Championship where you're up versus someone that even if you're far ahead, you have that inkling of, because of the individual class, they could turn it around. And that is why it was also important for G2 to keep going. So let's take a look at G2's Mercedes drive to victory, the fight before Baron, which I think was as much essential as it was well played from G2.
I think this play was obviously the nail in the coffin, but I love the fact that Jankos just dived in the brush and found a pick. That all started off by catching Canyon off guard, and just a lot of small individual outplays coming from the side of G2, where keep your eyes on Perks here, completely chunking out Ghost and removing him from the fight. And what they found was exactly what they found versus Gen G. It wasn't a straight up 5v5 front-to-back team fight. It was 4 versus 1, 4 versus 2, 3 versus 1, and they were just getting like what looked like a huge team fight, actually just multiple punishes and picks. picks, which they were able to then snowball off the back of.
And then it went over to the Drake after that, and it was the end of the game in terms of G2. Now, let's look at a couple of matchups in depth, starting with the jungle. In the pre-show, we said Canyon is playing absolutely out of his mind. They were going to have to see what exactly Jankos can show us. And right now, it doesn't seem to be the biggest issue for G2 in the second game, at least.
I think the Kindred choice, I believe this is the first time we saw Jankos play. I might be wrong, I don't have that stat in my mind, but it's the first time he shows up with it. I think G2 as a whole has adapted to this playstyle more and more. On the other hand, I want to also highlight for Canyon, usually with Graves in the situations, like Damwon have picked Graves in the past, usually the draft is towards that champion. If you're playing Graves and your top laner is Fiora and your mid laner is Sylas, these are champions that require a lot of attention. We've had them in solo queue. Players that play these champions are cry babies for a reason. They want attention, they want resources. That's what Graves wants. So it's kind of an awkward position to be in for Canyon, but Jankos punished with the Kindred, got ahead and did super well.
You're correct. His first Kindred at Worlds 2020 for Jankos,
Yes.
that is. That's just goes to show how you can see things coming out in a best of 5 that you wouldn't necessarily expect or have seen before. So let's pull up the draft once more. Damwon has chosen red side for game 3.
Okay.
As a reminder, G2 first team to beat Damwon on the blue side in 24 games. That winning streak is now over. And Damwon says, we'll try it again on the red side. What do you want to see, Verius?
So, well, I think what this suggests is counter pick is very important, obviously. But what was interesting is G2 used their counter pick for AD carry rather than everything else. They blind picked the Twisted Fate, which Damwon got the counter of. They also blind picked the Camille, again, counter of. And so I'm curious as to G2 are clearly happy to blind pick a lot of their champions and then hope for a favorable matchup. I'm curious as to where Damwon are actually looking to get their counter, whether it will be in the bot lane once again or if it's for the solo laners.
I think it's less about the counters, more so about just the fact that there's a big shared champion pool when it comes to both teams. The Camille, the Twisted Fates. When you can snag 2 of those away, all of a sudden, you take a lot away from the
That's
enemy
true.
and you support your own identity and your own idea in the game.
Let's see what happens. And what is fun for all the viewers at home, we get minimum of 4 games today, and that's always something to be happy about. A spot in the final is on the line as Damwon and G2 are tied at 1-1 going into game 3.